Dear Lord, thank you for being here with us tonight again. We ask that you will teach us your ways to live in love, peace, and kindness with each other. Thank you for all with your many blessings. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Matt, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Otten,
Here.
Councilman Bishop,
Here, sir.
Councilman Herschel,
Here.
Councilman Henry,
Here.
Mayor Junkins,
Here.
Councilman Sassine,
Here.
Recorder Sassine, here. Councilman Snyder,
Here.
Councilman Weisner.
Here.
Thank you, Matt. At this time, I'm turning the meeting over to our solicitor, T.C. McCarthy, who will talk about our water and sewer customer increase. T.C.?
Okay, at this time, the hour being 8 o'clock, the Village of Bethlehem convenes a public hearing on the proposed increase of water rates and increase of sewer rates, which was published in each of the newspapers, giving notice to the public that they could appear at this meeting at this time and place and speak with regard to it. Before we do that, let me say that the decision to increase the rates by the amount of increase was seriously considered by all of the council members. Nobody wants to increase water rates, sewer rates, or any other rates for citizens. We have not had a water rate increase for 7 years in water, 9 years in sewer. We got a 55% increase to us from the city of Wheeling for sewage, and a 12% increase to the village for water. In addition to that, the costs, which our CPA treasurer has explained to all the council members prior to the reading of the first ordinance, our costs have increased greatly. We have one of our funds running in the red right now. The Public Service Commission won't let us do that. Public Service Commission requires from these council members fiduciary duty for the operation of the water and sewer funds. So none of them, as well as myself, wants to increase any rates. But you have to keep the system running. We have to replace water lines, sewer lines, etc. We have to keep up with all the other costs. But right off the top, we're facing 55% as of May 21 from the city of Wheeling on sewerage and 12% on water. Notice haven't been given of the public hearing for both water rate increase and sewer rate increase. And I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, and if there's any comments from the public, they should be stated now.
Is there anybody here tonight in the audience that wants to talk about water and sewer rate increases?
What have you done to curtail your costs?
Pardon me?
What have you done to curtail your costs? The cost of maintaining your water and sewer system. Has anything been done to try and control those costs?
Well, I think we tried that all along, Steve. We're not perfect, but you know, they don't like to spend a dollar if we don't have to. I don't know what you're aiming at, material, labor, or what?
Yeah, and from what I understand, you got more people working up here now than you ever did before.
Well, they're not all working on the same thing. We also have a lot more infrastructure work to be done than we had before. Things are changing.
In this rate increase, are you gonna get Sugar Lane water tank full of water again and use it like it's supposed to be instead of leaving it sit there empty?
I don't know, you've mentioned that before, and this is something that the water and sewer people will have to discuss.
Very good.
Okay, there not being any other,
Okay, so with the rate increase also, I live on Meadow Drive, and y'all know there's breaks down 88 all the time. I know this past year, at least 5 times, we've had just a trickle of water. Will this increase help fund to replace the line, or what's the end goal there?
Okay, when all of a sudden I have not heard anything about Meadow Drive water line being insufficient? Is this something just cropped up, or has this been for a while and nobody let us know?
It's been going on for years. I did get a phone call once that the water, that a line had broke, and they need to work on it. But we'll have a trickle of water, don't get a phone call anymore. And you drive down 88, and you'll have policemen out there, and you'll see somebody working on the edge of the road. I assume that they're fixing the pipe.
That's right, that's
And,
correct. Whenever we work on Ridgecrest Road, that's like the highway to hell. I have a cruiser on the front end and the back end.
Yeah, that is a rough stretch, I
Yeah,
guarantee it.
well, safety, I've preached that to the crew, safety first.
Yes, sir, and I agree with that
Yeah.
100%. I'm a safety
Well,
manager myself.
Okay, I'll make a note and I'll have them check the water flow pressure on Meadow Drive.
Well, sir, the pressure's all right now. It's just there's numerous breaks.
To help maybe answer that question, you saw in the news several months ago, the village has received its first installment of the CARES Act funds. We're going to receive several $100,000. That money can be used for water and sewer improvements. I'm on the water committee. I'm going to suggest that we start toward the end of the line, more toward Meadow, and replace at least $350,000 worth of water line working back Ridgecrest, because it seems like the further out Ridgecrest you go, the more breaks there are. So almost from past Maple to the end of the line are the majority of the breaks. I'd love to be able to use some of the funding for that. I'm sure council will be on board with it. Just got to wait till we get all the money from the government. I'm not sure why we don't make phone calls anymore, but it used to be when there was a break, all the affected people were called. I'm sorry that hasn't happened. I'll talk to the girls about making sure that we get back on that, so at least you're made aware when there's a break on Ridgecrest.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to find out once you start heading down.
Well, right,
88,
yeah.
you see that fiasco, and safety first, that's awesome. I was just curious, so in order to get that line replaced out through there, it's gonna have to come from the CARES funds. This rate increase is not gonna help fund that project, correct?
Right, so if you look at the water fund right now, just in the checking, there's $171,000. During the last month, so this is the first month of the rating, or the second month of the rate increase that we've experienced from Wheeling, and we haven't raised on the customers. Our water fund lost almost $23,000 last month. The sewer fund lost just over $16,000 last month. That's just because Wheeling's charging us more than what we're charging the residents. So when you look at Ridgecrest, the water, if you're driving out toward your place, the water line's on the left side of the road. You know that. You see all the things. When you replace the line, you're either going to have to move it to the other side of the road, because if you go further left, you're in everybody's front yard. If you move it to the middle of the road, you've got to shut down the road completely. Kind of what's happening in downtown Wheeling right now. The costs for that are astronomical. And if you go to the far right side of the road, that's where the gas line runs. So then you run into additional costs because the gas line runs on that. Then you have to re-tie in all the houses that are along Ridgecrest. So you have to dig trenches through the road for each house to reconnect everybody's service line. So the cost on Ridgecrest is astronomical. I'm guessing if you replace the whole line, I would say it's a $3 million project. So I'd love to use the CARES fund to at least replace the back end of it, because I think that's where the majority of the breaks happen.
Well, I I appreciate you explaining that. I have not lived up here my whole life.
Right.
But I've learned a lot the past few years.
Well, keep learning, man.
Yeah, and I understand it is a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
But, I appreciate y'all getting water out to us. Now, whenever it's working, it's great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Just a little frustrating. I have a little 1-month-old, so we like to keep water flowing, especially now.
I'll talk to the girls tomorrow and let them know if they can keep the phone calls up, especially so that you're notified if there is a break,
We would appreciate
especially during business hours when they're here.
What causes those breaks? I'm just curious.
I think a lot of it is the trucks, the overweight trucks. You know, every time at least when I was there, Don, and I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes, I apologize. But every time I worked a break, 3 years ago and the 4 years prior to that, the line is covered with about 10 inches of concrete. And when those heavy trucks go over it, that concrete's shifting and it's hitting that pipe and it's creating the breaks. When you see them, usually when a water line breaks everywhere else in the village, there's a hole in the line and the water's shooting out the hole. What we see out on Ridgecrest a lot are full stress breaks, so the brake crack goes clear around the pipe, and that's from shifting and too much weight going over it. It's an easy excuse, but I blame the big rigs.
To add to what Tim is saying, the water committee, we got to get together and plan. Within the last couple of years, I replaced 4 different water lines: Green Tree Road, Walnut Avenue, Poplar Lane, and Sugar Lane. And we've been able to do that economically, but there's got to be more planning. We will, I noted, we will look into Meadow Drive water line. I don't know what size is out there, what type it is, and so on and so forth. But what's Tim's saying, once we get our act together, and that's what the government is telling us for on this American Rescue Plan Act, is what we can use it for: water, sewer, and broadband. And I just got off the phone with the state today to get some more information from them, because we're in a process of replacing water meters. We're upgrading our water meter system with automatic reading, automatic controls, a drive-by, just like the electric company does, the gas company. We're doing that. And that's also going to give me more time. The street crew is not going to have to take the last week of the month and read nothing reading meters. They can do this in a matter of hours. We have about 16 square miles and we can get around in a short time. So that's going to save us money too. But we got to do some planning. Water line should be no problem as far as spending money. And that's something that we got to do some planning, and that's what we haven't had a chance to do. It's just all starting to come together. So.
Well, I appreciate it. So some of this money can go towards that then?
Yeah.
Some of this rate increase?
Yes, it will.
Okay, good.
I got a question.
Quick question,
Okay.
is there a known backlog of water system breaks, or not breaks, but places we know we need a lot of repair work or replacing lines, or is that kind of up in the air still?
I don't know. I didn't follow your question.
Dory, there used to be a log. I think the guys keep it in the back. They do
Yeah.
log every break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we know where and when.
yeah.
And like what Tim was saying, is on Ridgecrest Road, you've got the pounding of the sand boxes, you got the pounding of the water trucks and everything. In fact, one of the last breaks out there was 2 breaks in the same, or 2 problems in the same hole. One was our clamp that we put in earlier, the bolts vibrated loose, and then there was a service line that got broken. And we did that, or 2 things at the same time. So each seems like each break is just a little different, although it lets water come out where it shouldn't. So.
Sir behind you had a question as well.
Yeah, I got a question. Well, first, you said nine years for no cost increase, which is great, thank you for that. I guess the question, that Wheeling's charging almost 55% increase over it, but the amount of people we have in Wheeling, businesses in Wheeling versus what we have in Bethlehem, I mean, that's like apples and oranges. I mean, you can't compare water rates.
Well, what the Public Service Commission does, when Wheeling applies for a rate, they have to apply for a rate increase, just like we did because they increased us. But they get a special rate for customers to whom they are selling in bulk. In other words, they're selling us our water. And the Public Service Commission increased, provided their increase to be 45%.
So
45%.
So they haven't had so they haven't billed Bethlehem for 9 years for a rate increase, but they've increased Wheelings?
No, they've increased ours a
they
few
increased
times,
it all
we've
at the
just
same
eaten the
time.
cost.
You've eaten the cost.
Yeah, they've increased us, never this big, but they've increased us a few times. I think the most recent one was 5 years ago, water rates went up.
Water 7, sewer's 9.
No, ours, that's how long it's been since we've raised.
We raised.
But Wheeling gave us a little bit of a raise a few years back, and we were able to eat the cost. And I think that's one of the reasons, and we had talked about it during the last meeting, one of the reasons why we built in a few extra percent into this increase was so that 2 years from now, if Wheeling increases us 5%, we can eat that cost. So hopefully, this will be the last rate increase we see for another 7 to 9 years.
All right, I just thought
Yeah.
it was a little steep, 55%.
Right. Yeah,
When you
it's
got how much
45
business
on
you
water
got
and
Wheeling,
55 on
fair.
sewage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
What will the rate be? Forget the percentages. Let's say our bill is 5401 right now.
What's your
Two different rates, sewage and water.
Yeah.
How does that apply to a
Jamie's
household
line.
now?
Jamie's looking it up.
The average,
Minimum bill. We'll go from what the
3,000 gallons is the minimum.
No, yeah,
Will be 72.
yeah, I think it'll go from 58 to 70 something.
72.
72, I think.
You keep in mind,
Mine's
sometimes
54.
Yeah, 5401, so that's your minimum bill. Yeah, so you use the minimum amount chargeable. It'll go to 72 or 71, something like
72
that.
and change.
Yeah.
72 and change?
It's 5401 right now.
Yeah.
All right.
It was about 72.
Okay, are there any other comments on the water and sewer rate increases from the gallery here?
Is there any way to put any cost off on these big sand trucks and water trucks running up through here now?
Unfortunately not, because it's
That's
a
a
state
state
road.
road.
Because it's a state road. Yeah, I'd love to sit there and charge them a toll.
Oh, coming here from Meadow Drive tonight, they're probably running 40 down through there.
Yeah.
Big sand
Yeah,
trucks.
and I know Steve lives over right on Ridgecrest, and he hears them all hours of the night. They don't stop.
I feel sorry for you. All right, thank you.
if there being no further comments, no further questions, I'll declare it 8:19, the public hearing on the water rate increase and the public hearing on the sewer rate increase to be closed. We can now proceed with the rest of the meeting.
Okay, next we have the approval of the minutes from the last council meeting. Has everybody had a chance to have a copy? And I would entertain for a motion to approve the minutes from our last council meeting as presented.
So moved.
second.
Any question on the motion? There be no question on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next back to you, Matt, to recorder's report.
Our next council meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021 at 8 p.m. here at the village office. And that is all I have this evening, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next, Jamie, do you have some things you want to say financially?
I just have the July 2021 financial statements for you. And also, we have received the first deposit for the CARES Act money. So that was $512,169.56. It was direct deposited Thursday or Friday of last week. So that money, that first half is available. The second half does not become available until approximately June of 2022. And if any of you are around today, the auditors are here doing June 2020 audit that got pushed back due to COVID. So they're here doing that, and then probably we'll be back in a few months to do the June 2021.
Jamie, what was the exact figure on the first CARES Act installment? You said 521,
512,169.56.
512. Thank you.
Okay, does that conclude your report, Jamie?
So I have.
Okay. Very good. We're going to the mayor's report. I want to report to council that after patiently waiting, the Ohio County Commission delivered the necessary paperwork for 3 used police cruisers that was promised. Police Chief Russ Fair will start inspecting each unit and evaluating what cruiser will require to make one safe and place into service. The 3 units are a 2010 Chevrolet 4-door, a 2012 Chevrolet Tahoe, a 2014 Chevrolet Caprice. This addition will bolster our fleet and give us more flexibility. Recent events. On August 5, we had a service line break on Poplar Lane. On August 10, we had a service line break on Hubbard Lane. On August 11, we investigated a possible sanitary sewer line separation on Pine Lane. This line was down over the backside of the hill, and we had to contact Kenny at HB Excavating to respond with his track hoe to investigate the situation. Luckily, the village's line had not moved, but it was not leaking. We'll be doing some replacing and blocking the village's sewer line. On August 11, we removed the water meter, the old line in a meter pit and capped off the service line at 27 Chapel Road, which was a former Hammond property. So the Bethlehem Fire Department could start grading the surface in that area. On August 13, we received a call of a possible water break on Willow Lane. Upon checking the area of the resident at that location in the meter pit, the bottom of the meter pit, or the bottom of the water meter, blew out, and it wasn't a water break, it was just a bad meter. And on August 12, our street crew revisit the site at 146 Ridgecrest Road, where we just replaced the fire hydrant, to finish restoring the disturbed area and place topsoil, raked, and place grass seed and straw in the same. Our village street crew will resume addressing some of our much needed projects that need to be accomplished now. Hot asphalt patching, roadways, curbs, diverters, and wherever else needed. Finish converting water meters to be compatible with our new meter reading system. We also need to continue to help our parks with their miscellaneous projects that surface from time to time. After new business tonight, I'd like to have a line agenda item change after any citizen wishing to be heard and be conducted, and then recess the general meeting, and then authorize convening into executive session. Under new business tonight, there's a few things that I want to bring up. The annual Urban Deer Bear Archery Cross Bowl split season for the village, scheduled for dates of September 4 through December 31, 2021, and extending from January 10, 2022 to January 31, 2022. And as Jamie mentioned earlier, we received a check from the American Rescue Plan on August 12th for $112,169.56, which is being deposited into our separate checking account that was established for that funding. And also, our solicitor under new business will present the first reading of amended new sections of Chapter 90 entitled Dogs and Cats. That's basically all I have. Other officers' reports. Tom, do you have something you want to mention now?
No.
Okay.
We'll have the second reading of the water and sewer rate ordinance and a new amendment to the dogs and cats ordinance.
Okay, there's no police chief reports. That'll be due next meeting. Committee reports. Start with you, Aaron, on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, I got a couple things. Last Friday, Aaron and I met. We went around the parks, got some ideas of a couple of things. One thing we came up with, over on Bay Tree Park, really on all of our parks, over on Bay Tree specifically, the park is outlined with old telephone poles where we used to have wood chips in the pit and everything. And then this park here, we still got a couple, same scenario. We haven't used wood chips in a long time, and now it's just grass, basically. So we got a couple estimates from Snagel's Landscaping, and they give us a bid for removing those old posts, putting new topsoil, seed, and everything down. And then since they already cut the parks, they said they'll go ahead and just cut the new grass too, since it's already there anyway. So the bid for doing this park here is a total of $3,935.
Is that Bay Tree or community?
This is community.
What was that figure again?
$3,935.
3,000.
That includes their labor, total material cost, everything with everything I just said. The total for Bay Tree will be $1,925. And then our crew is actually doing this at Bop Field. This was something they were able to take on over at Bop. So they're actually tearing those up over there, and they're gonna seed and everything over there. So I was talking to Erin today, she presented me with these. Basically, we both agreed that we think these are reasonable bids for both of the parks. She did try to get a hold of Jensen Landscaping to get another bid. They're just too busy. So this is the bid we have. I'd like to go ahead and get this and get it done before fall. That way we don't have to wait until spring to do it.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You're replacing the wood chips with real live grass or
Yes.
turf of some
Yeah,
sort?
because no, it's just gonna be grass, because basically in all the places now it is, anyway.
You'll be back to having ruts the way it was years ago, then, with the kids with their feet and stuff. If you don't put something else down, that grass won't last.
Well, I mean, over on Mount Lebanon, it's just grass now. I mean, honestly, the wood chips are below 2 layers of dirt, 2 inches of dirt.
Isn't there something to be underneath there to cushion a child if it falls off a swing or something, or off the sliding board? I'm just asking the question. Years back, we were required to put something soft for a landing.
Yeah, you are, and I would suggest that before you do that, that the committee look into that, because, I mean, they just did it down on, the new Woodsdale Community Playground, because I passed there going to back and forth to work, and some other playgrounds that I've seen recently, and, I happened to be in North Park in Pittsburgh over the weekend, and I saw it there, that there's a requirement, like under swings specifically, I know. So, you need to check with somebody that, you know, does park recreation like that. City of Wheeling could probably tell you.
Even if
Their
it can't be
recreation
grass, Aaron,
department.
it might be worth waiting, just because you're gonna have to close off the equipment to, when you seed and straw. So either close it now or keep it closed later to begin the year. You know what I mean? It's
Regular grass ain't gonna, regular grass isn't gonna last.
in spots, it'll be out in spots, but,
Would you say rubber chips?
There's rubber chips.
yeah, they shred tires.
And something else.
Yeah.
And they mix and
They
use
shred
it.
and wash
I-
tires.
I think it's a requirement of certain places.
Is that our requirement, Tom, or is that just a?
No, that's a federal.
Yeah.
Anytime you're working with this park, you have to adhere to all the federal laws, because it was a federal land grant that was used to build the park.
The only other thing I have is we're wanting to look into new equipment over on Bop Field, but we weren't exactly sure if we need to get permission from the fire department because they're leasing the land, or what steps need taken to get new equipment over there. I was over there last Friday. That equipment's bad. I mean, there's certain spots it's just coming up out of the ground, metals breaking off and all stuff like that. So we'd like to look into that, but we need to find the right steps to go through first.
You know, I think we discussed it just briefly last meeting, that I mentioned that the fire department, when they go to sell the building after the new building, they're not gonna want that playground there, so that'd be maybe a good thing for the, and I think in the
What
Bop.
do you mean, they're gonna close it, or?
No, they ought to spin it off to somebody that would develop it like the park people, because.
Oh, so you're saying they'll give the playground land to the village?
Well, I don't know that they'll give it to the village, but it'd be spun off, because I would say if I were to buy the building, I wouldn't want the playground.
So kind of like how we're donating the water line to hook them up for several $1,000, maybe they could hook up a donation for the playground for the kids. That'd be a nice thing to
Something
do.
for discussion.
That'd be a nice thing to do.
All I'm saying is that the fire department is not wanting to retain that. And
That makes sense.
They would divorce that from the building when they sell it, so. But because I heard some things earlier that maybe the park was interested, or the village was interested in getting that land there, so. Anyway, for what it's worth.
That's all I have this evening.
Do you have anything else?
That's all I have this
What about
evening.
the tables?
I can bring that up. I didn't think it was necessary. We did purchase 6 new tables.
Nice.
Lowe's had them on sale.
Cool.
Picked them up. The crews are painting them today. We're just replacing a couple tables.
Nice.
But
Yeah, I
that's all.
see some new tables out, because there's some old ones that they're not, they're on their last leg.
Picnic tables?
Yeah.
Okay, we have, the next is police, we have a new police committee, and with Bobby Henry, Aaron Snyder, and Randy Wisner. I'm working on some things, and I will be having a meeting with you guys shortly, because I've got some paperwork I want to run by you. Okay, next is roads and streets, Tommy and Steve.
Yeah, we got that list together for the road sealing, and there is quite a few lanes on here.
Like everyone?
27 of them actually, but we would like to get prices on each one of them individually, because I have no idea what these prices are gonna be now, compared to what there was the last time we actually did it. There's a few of the lanes that could be on that list that's probably gonna need some patching before they would do the sealing. And there's some lanes that's not on there, that is on the other list that Steve and I have, that's coming up in the next year or so to be paved, hopefully, which would be a kind of a waste of money to do that. The ones that's too bad to actually seal, actually, but, and then Steve, you got like three names?
Yeah, I got 3 companies we can contact for bids,
to get
2,
prices.
but there's an extra one here. So after the meeting, I can hand it to you, or
Okay.
whatever assistance you need from me or Tommy, we're there to help out.
Yeah, and it may come down to we're gonna have to prioritize which ones, depending on price per lane, that,
Worst first.
right, yeah. Right now, they're not actually in that order, but they're all there that need attention.
All the ones that need attention.
Yeah, we'll get a copy of that to you, too, after the meeting.
So does the sealing process involve just coating the asphalt completely or just doing the cracks?
The cracks.
Okay.
It'd be,
So I thought.
It slows them from spreading and spidering.
yeah,
I've
it'd
done
be,
mine over the years. so.
Yeah.
you couldn't afford to do all the lanes
Right.
and make them black and pretty, you know what I mean? It's,
Just
But
the cracks.
It does save them, though, I mean, especially the newer ones that we spent all that money on.
Extends
It
the
adds
life
life
of the
to
road.
it.
Oh, yeah, definitely keep the water out.
Yeah, with today's prices, I'm not sure what that's gonna come up to be.
Well, we're about to find out. So,
Yeah, we need to find out, we need to get it done, really.
Okay, is that all on roads and streets then? Okay. Tim, how about water and sewer?
Well, I spoke pretty at length before the meeting actually started, so I'll leave that part. Went to, as directed, at the last meeting, went to meet with Roger Kent and Jack, and this kind of pigtails into zoning a little bit, so you can follow it up with Mark, the next committee. I met with Jack Tush and I met with Roger, and we went over on site, and I took a copy of a good plat plan, the one that we had all approved for Michael's Way that showed everything it was supposed to show. And I used that as an example for Roger. He was really unclear as to what a plat plan needed to be. So I used that as an example. I told him that we need to know where every water line's located, where every meter is located. We need to know where the sewer lines go. We need to go where the road drainage, storm sewers go. And I gave him the reasons behind all of that. Accurate readings. If the Army Corps of Engineer ever comes to us and says we're seeing stronger outflow at the bottom of the hill, we need to be able to explain why. We need to show him the plat plan as to where that drainage is. For sewer metering, the same way. If there's ever a break, the guys need to know on the loop line that goes up the hill where to dig, where not to dig, because there's another line here or there. He was very understanding. It all went very well. Jack is in the process of drawing a new full plat plan right now. I told Roger to give us his pie in the sky dream for what he wants that development to be, because he can always amend it and get it reapproved later. So if he decides he's building 18 of those townhouses, put them all on there, and then 2 years from now he says, well, I'm only going to do 12, he can always adjust and revise the plat plan, council reapproves it, but it's always good to start pie in the sky. He was open to that, he was fine. I talked to him a little bit about his building permits. He's up on all of them. He gets his permits. Going forward, and I explained this to the girls in the office, anytime he files for a permit, that now needs 2 signatures. So there will no longer be just 1 signature. Those signatures can be you and me, or Mark and me, but I told him that I have to be one of the signatures just because council charged me with kind of keeping an eye on stuff. So myself and another member of the zoning committee or the mayor will have to sign for any permit that he does. He was a little bit confused on his water sewer taps. He thought that if he was tapping the sewer 1 time for these 3 townhomes, he only had to pay 1 tap. Well, that's incorrect because we've got 3 sewer charges that are going there. So he was to come back in and pay the rest of his sewer taps. Going forward, he'll be on the straight on that. Overall, it was a good meeting. Everybody copacetic. That's what I was charged with doing, so that's done.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep.
John. I hope you got your point across.
All good.
Yeah, I think you did with the taking in the other,
Yeah.
drawing for an example. So, okay, next, Mark, you got anything?
Nothing this evening,
Okay.
Mayor.
I'll see if I can line something up for you. I hate to, no report. Okay. All righty. Okay, under old business, is there anything that come before council under old business? Okay, let's move into new business then, and one of the first things I like to do is you have our bills for council approval, the list of bills, August 2021. I would entertain a motion to approve the August 2021 list of bills as presented.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made. Is there any question on the motion? If there be no question on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, this is sort of an annual move. I've mentioned under my report that it's now referred to as urban deer/bear archery. And this is the first year I know that they've included bears that you could shoot with a. So I would like to entertain a motion that we establish urban deer/bear archery crossbow split season for the village of Bethlehem, scheduled for dates of September 4 through December 31, 2021, and extending from January 10, 2022 to January 31, 2022. This is usually we usually do this in the month of August, as I look back and recall. So I'd like to I'd entertain a motion that we establish that motion.
Question, why do we have a break between
Because
the first 10 days of January?
Because of,
Rifle?
what is it?
The state does.
Yeah, the state puts a break in because of other hunting seasons. They don't want anybody,
Okay.
yeah,
In the woods.
because you don't have to wear orange when you're bow hunting.
They just started
Unless
this, I
it's
think, back in
Right.
a few years ago, splitting the time in January. We didn't have that, and they started added that.
We have a fee for that, don't we? Do we have a fee for the permits?
Yeah,
Was it
license.
$5?
Yeah, like a $5 fee. yeah.
$5,
It's very,
okay, just
very
include that in
nominal.
the motion, the $5 fee. just so the girls are square on what they need to charge everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who administers all this? Like, make sure that the people.
We do.
Do you-
So they come into the office here, they pay their $5, we write them down, give them a little form
Okay.
that says that they've paid their fee and they.
That is recorded here.
Yeah,
We know
yeah,
they're out.
it's all recorded here.
I think they have, I asked them if they had a form, I think they do have a
Yep.
form, because
Alright.
we already received one call. And I
Yeah.
said, my gosh, I haven't, usually,
That is a joke.
they don't start to call till 1st of October.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Is there not a requirement to take a class anymore? Do you have to take a bow hunting class for that in order to get your permit? Because a few years ago, they said that you had to take a class to hunt within the city limits as far as the city bow hunt is concerned. And also, the other question about the bow season being interrupted, you can still use a bow during the regular season, but you have to wear orange anytime there's a rifle season. So I don't know why the break, but, and you said it started when, November the 4th?
No, it's, September. Yeah, September 4th.
Okay,
September 4th through the end of the year.
okay.
And then
But
January.
the same question, do you require a
We always did.
Class.
Um,
Talk about the class.
You gotta have a hunter safety class.
You gotta have it now to get your license, your overall license, I think.
So if you have a
This
West
is-
Virginia.
No, your regular license doesn't cover this. There was a stipulation there where you had to take a
No, I took it.
urban bow hunting class in order to participate. It was like, a couple years ago, it was like $25.
Yeah, I remember Fred Richter used to put them on.
Yeah, they used to have them at the.
I'll check with the.
You should check on that because, I'm sure there'll be, well, including me, I've hunted bow, many, many years, and I didn't want to spend another $25 just to hunt deer in the city limits.
Was there an age that you were grandfathered in?
Not on the city limits,
Not on the
I
city?
don't think so.
Now, we're not in the city of Wheeling.
Correct,
Yeah, we're in the village. Is that
Correct.
what you mean when you say city?
correct. Well, again, I'm pretty sure that's, you had to take a class, or at least, that's what I was under the impression of.
I remember mine. I got a little green card. I took the class up at the Presbyterian Church. That's been
How long is it good for?
it's good for life. You take it.
You leaving your
Yeah,
name
hunter
and number
safety
with
class.
me.
I'm
When I-
sorry?
You gotta have that.
How about you leaving after the meeting, your name and telephone number, and when I check it out, I'll call you.
I sure will.
You gotta have that hunter safety.
Thank you.
Okay, do we?
So moved.
Second. Okay.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah, yeah, moved and second, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Motion carried, thank you. Okay, next I have Jamie's financial statement, July 31, 2021. I would entertain a motion to accept the financial statement as presented and filed for audit.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any question on the motion? There be no question on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, I'd like to refer over to TC to have the first reading of the ordinance on dogs and cats that he upgraded, amended.
I was gonna start with the water and sewer. Do you mind?
He wants to start with water and sewer. Is that okay?
That's fine, I'm sorry. If you want to do that.
Okay. So we have for second reading tonight and adoption, the ordinance pertaining to the water utility rate increase. And that ordinance is entitled, "An Ordinance of the Council of the Village of Bethlehem Adopting Increased Water Rates and Charges for the water utility service provided by the Village of Bethlehem and setting an effective date for such rates." We need a motion, a second, a vote, and pass.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any question on the motion? If there be no question on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, thank you.
Next, for adoption by council, you have an ordinance of the council of the Village of Bethlehem adopting increased rates and charges for the sewer utility service provided for the village of Bethlehem and setting an effective date for such rates. Again, we need a motion, a second, and a vote to adopt it.
So moved. Second.
Okay, is there any question on the motion? If there be no question on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
I was requested to prepare an amendment to the current ordinance that relates to dogs and cats within the village of Bethlehem. And you have before you an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending chapter 90 entitled, quote, Dogs and Cats, end quote, of Title 9 entitled, quote, General Regulations of the Bethlehem Code of 1976 as amended, end quote, and establishing and adopting new sections of chapter 90 entitled Dogs and Cats, of Title 9 entitled General Regulations of the Bethlehem Code of 1976 as amended. Need a motion, second, and a vote to pass it on first reading. Second reading will be at the next meeting.
Can I just make some points on this, guys, in case section 90.13 is what changed in the ordinance, so the rest of the ordinance is original from 1976. One of the things that
It was changed in 76, and then there was some amendments in 94, I think.
okay, thank you.
But it's been since then.
One of the things that TC and I talked about, and thank you, TC, for all your work on this, I appreciate it. One of the things we talked about is we did not want to create a dog registry. We don't feel that it should be right that just because you go to the pet store and buy a Rottweiler, you should have to pay a fee or your dog's dangerous automatic. That's not what we were looking for. This is for kind of after the fact events, similar to what happened just a few weeks ago. So pretty much what it details is the dog warden and our police officers will make an investigation after an event. Our judge will then determine whether or not the dog is vicious and then can fine or go further if necessary. Does anybody have any questions on what was added? This was a question that came up, Tommy, and this is what you pay to the county. The county then reimburses the village. So that's been in effect for a long, long time. The only changes to this current are 90.13.
Is that added then?
Assessor's office charges.
Right, the dog tag fee, yeah. The dog tag fee is assessed at the assessor's office. You fill out the little green paper, and then they send the check back to the village. Does anybody have any questions for me or TC? TC did a really good job on this, guys. I appreciate it.
I'm good with it.
I think we ought to try to publish in any free manner we can on the Facebook page.
Okay.
And because I'm hearing more and more about these dogs coming towards people.
Right.
Being loose, scaring people. It's amazing what you hear once you start talking about it. But I think we owe it to the village people to try to get it to them what we're doing here.
Remember, we always have leash laws too. So we can always come back and get that. If there's a dog out without a leash that comes at somebody, just because they don't attack doesn't mean they're not, breaking an ordinance. We always have the leash law to fall back on as well.
TC, can you email this to me?
The ordinance?
Can you email this ordinance to me as well?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance as read by TC.
Second.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further question on the motion? If there be no further questions on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, very much. I appreciate that. I know my father-in-law appreciates that. Thank you.
Is there any other new business that I've forgotten about we want to bring up tonight before the council? Okay, if there be no other new business, any citizen wishing to be heard? We heard from the citizen. Steve, I've been disappointed if you didn't say.
You got $500 and some thousand in CARES Act money, and I know, like Tim said, you want to replace some line at the end of Ridgecrest. But if you would get Sugar Lane tank back in operation, any breaks between Sugar Lane and the top of the hill wouldn't affect this man or the people out on the end, because you would have water on that end of the village. It's pretty critical that you get that tank back running. It's been sitting there empty.
I think that's
You've got the money to do it now. There are people out there more than willing to help train these guys so they can run the altitude valve and keep your water fresh.
well, I see I see you're just volunteered to be a good trainer then, because you're familiar with it.
No, I didn't say I would train them. I said there are people out there who
Oh,
will train them.
well, a lot of people. Yeah,
But I can get you the name of a company
this is a
that
top,
will make your tank right.
this is one of the topics we'll be discussing in our water and sewer committee meeting. So, along with the others that we talked about.
I mean, I'm asking council, you got any inkling to get that tank back in service? Cause if you're not, you might as well get somebody to go in there with a torch and cut it down. It's a liability right now.
It is a good idea, Dawn. It is.
Well, that's just something we need to
Yeah,
discuss.
I mean,
with others.
we had it full, we had it in operation, several years ago, and I think the day I left, they shut it off because the guys didn't want to climb up the top of the tank and drop the pucks in, or I had to manually stir in that tank to keep the water fresh because the knock was because the pressure had to be maintained at such a level. It didn't drop enough to refresh itself, to get enough fresh in there, so we had to stir it and add chlorine to it. And the day I left, the guys decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And so they shut it down. I mean, we had already replaced the altitude valve and everything. We had, that's all new.
Reconditioned
Yeah, everything
10
out there
years
is in
before
new
they
condition.
Shut it off, and somebody made the
Yeah.
decision just to drain it and shut it off. which
Yeah.
is-
The altitude
Really,
valve, everything that goes
actually,
with it is new,
There's
or
no other word.
less than 10 years old.
They don't know what they're doing. They
So it
didn't
was
know what they
operational.
did.
Oh yeah, we had an
We
operational
had
4 year, 5
I
years
think
ago.
we should bring it online if we can afford it.
It is a good idea, Dawn.
Yeah, well, then we need to loop sugar and maple too, and that'll continue.
Well, yeah, that'll help with
that'll
the
make it
pressure.
flow.
That'll help with the pressure. But in the meantime, you can fill the tank
Yeah,
and get it ready to go.
okay. Well, I wanna discuss, when we get together here on
Happy
the
to.
other stuff.
Yeah, happy to.
Okay. Any other citizen wishing to
I
be
have
heard?
one question, and I've loved it up for my life more up in this area, but our lane made it Meadow Drive.
Your lane is which drive?
Meadow Drive, down the road here.
Okay.
Who plows it in this winter time? Is it safe for Bethlehem? Cause I've seen both trucks on that lane, and sometimes we get plowed, sometimes we don't get plowed. So, who plows that lane?
Which lane was that in?
Meadow.
Drive.
Meadow Drive?
Yeah.
Marshall County, isn't it?
I don't think we plow that.
I've seen Bethlehem trucks out
Yeah.
there plowing it, Bethlehem address.
Maybe,
We're-
maybe,
Bethlehem water, we do everything Bethlehem, but,
maybe we do because they have the water line there, but I wasn't aware that they were doing that. I thought Marshall County did that.
Yeah.
I've had, last past winter, I've seen the Bethlehem trucks up there, which is great, they just better build the state actually, so that'd be a big win for us, but.
What's that?
Can I?
Yeah.
One of the things that depending on the time of day when they're plowing, the Marshall County will sometimes get us on the radio on the you got the CB or whatever it is in the truck. If they're way out and the snow's pumping, they'll ask us to do it. Or if we're crushed, sometimes we can get them on the radio to do it. We kind of share the duty a little bit. If it falls through, it's a mistake. But usually Marshall County does it. If they get bogged down, they'll hit us on the radio and say, hey, if you guys are out, can you hit Meadow? When we go down to Omar, we'll just go down and do Meadow and then come back around off of White's and back up the hill. So it's kind of like a team effort there.
Okay, I was kinda curious, cause
Yeah.
last year we had like 2 days we didn't get plowed at all, and that's like, what's like
You need to get your neighbors to annex into Bethlehem.
Right.
And then you'll get it all the time.
You can all,
I got a
We-
Kubota with a
I took
snow blower out
we
there in the
took the
hill.
track
There you
down
go.
for a snow blower around, that's how we did our lane.
You can always-
Snow blowers and tractors out.
you can always call us and we can then either call the county for you or assist.
I called the police and they said it's.
Well,
not
no,
us.
don't call the police. Talk to the girls in the office.
Well, why was it that drivers?
It's not our-
In the police committee, but usually it's a courtesy that we help out Marshall County. But we can always address it, especially now it's gonna start getting colder. I hate to say that, but
Yeah, it's weird, cause
yeah.
like backyards in High County, my front
Right,
yard's in
right.
Marshall County, but it's like.
You said
but
you need to get
Bethlehem.
your neighbors to annex into Bethlehem.
Well, like I said, I do, the only thing, me and Bob are neighbors up there, the only thing we're having huge issues with is that hill right before 88. If you don't stop, you're gonna get plowed by one of them sand trucks wherever you're
Yeah.
Come down that
The
hill,
rest
it's
of the
like,
road
oh,
I can
shit.
take care of on that Kubota.
So
no
just the
problem.
entrance is the main part?
The hill is
Okay.
hard, if it doesn't get any salt on it.
Right.
man, it's just,
Okay.
Yeah, Chuck?
I'm Chuck Walls, I live on Bay Tree Drive, 9 Bay Tree Drive. There's a ditch behind me that was put there when it was Walmsley's that put the property in, or developed it behind me. Prior to the houses being built up there,
On Daisy Fields?
on Daisy Fields, correct.
Yeah.
There was no water that ran down that ditch at all. It all came underneath where the springs were hit, whatever. To the tune of, well, I spent many thousands of dollars. Last summer I had French drains put in the backyard. I had catch basins, had it go into my drainage system, and had my lawn reseeded again. And I've had a lot of water problems. I'm having no water problems now, but the ditch, since they started building those houses, or the 3 that are completed, I don't know where it comes from now, but the ditch that has a drain that goes under that road that goes up Daisy Fields, it has a culvert underneath that. It now has about this much opening at the top. It's full of mud, and that ditch that goes down is now full of
Well, what you're saying, the catch basins need cleaned.
it totally, and that whole ditch that used to be about this big, and they did a poor slurry job on it, but that's neither here nor there. But instead of being this deep, it's about this far from the top. It's full of mud. And it's gonna be a problem backing water up. Sooner or later, we're gonna have a big gully washer that's gonna have,
Well, usually after the gully washers, the guys know there's certain drains they gotta clean out, because it doesn't.
well, see, this is one though that, I don't know where the mud is coming from, to be honest with you, Don. I mean, it's, obviously the patterns change.
Well, this is something we'll have to check out. When your area was developed over, didn't they have some sort of culvert come down behind your houses? I think they do on the lower end, but don't
Yeah,
they?
it's kind of that, and they put, it initially was about, I'm gonna say pretty close to 3.5 feet to, I'm gonna say 3.5 feet deep. Sam, you've seen it there, but that was initially. Now, with the mud there,
Oh,
it used to be, if I were going to step down into it, I stepped down into it and it hit me about here. Now I can step down into it and it's about here.
Mhm. Well, we'll have to check that out, Chuck.
But there's, if we get any rain, it's completely full of water back up all the way underneath that road, and
Yeah, you should have called the office or something. Usually I get notes like that on my desk, and I can check them out, within a day or so. So you call, so we'll all get crew over here and we'll check it out. So,
okay.
see what's going on. Any other comments from the floor? Yes,
I
sir.
don't want to take too much time. My name is Sam Beza. I live on Bay Tree as well, number 8. If you're kind of familiar with that place, right in back of my house and also in back of Chuck's as it's coming down the hill, there's a little strip of woods that go between Bay Tree and Cedar Lane. Earlier this spring, right in back of my house, I had a very large tree come down from that property onto mine. It took out the power lines. It also damaged my shed, and of course I got a little bit of help from the insurance company to take care of some of that stuff. But my question is this: there's some gigantic trees there on that row of property. If you come down and take a look at them, and if these trees come down another time, which I'm sure they're going to, they're probably going to rip out more, do more damage to my shed and my neighbor's shed, but also take out some serious power lines. Is there anything that can be done? Can they be topped at least? Some of they're giants. I mean, can they be topped and to mitigate some of that problems? Or I'm sorry?
Who owns the property that these trees are on?
I'm really not sure. It's a strip of property that goes again
This was
between
Walmsley's
Bay Tree
property
and
that he sold to whomever
right.
that guy was.
It goes all the way around where the new house is built. Up on, what is that, Cedar?
Cedar
Yeah,
Lane.
on the far end of Cedar, before it drops down to the back end of Bay Tree. And that piece of property comes all the way around. And I thought someone had told me that the person who bought that house had purchased all that strip of property, but I'm not sure.
Well, maybe it would be best to come over and have you there so you can show us just what. Yeah.
I would, anytime.
Okay,
yeah.
you're number 8,
Number 8,
and your last name?
Beza, Sam, B-A-Y-Z-A.
Okay.
I might as well give you your phone number since you're
Well,
writing
that's
down.
all right.
304?
I got you, okay. I think we have it on file here, so.
You should. Well, my
Okay.
cell phone is 830-2416.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're just topped, some of those trees, if they're just topped, they're gonna be a big, they won't be near the problem,
Well,
because they're giants right now.
If there's any AEP lines, they should have, they've had their tree trimmers up here recently clearing right-of-ways. Because they've gone through the village, but I don't know if they're done there yet or not, but they had as many as about 5 trucks, and they had.
Yeah, I've seen them up my way, yeah.
They have
Yeah.
big booths.
I didn't know if that was AEP or not, I was gonna go over
That's
and talk to them and ask them if they come over and trim some of
subcontractor.
these giants.
So,
I mean, they're huge.
They only take care of them if they're near the high voltage wires. They're not gonna just cut
Yeah,
trees.
that right of way's so wide, and I don't know what it is offhand.
okay.
And if they're owned by another person, that person who built that house owns them, then we have to work with them, because they're personal property.
I was told by my insurance agent that I asked him if they would be liable, and he said, the only way that would be possible is if you knew for a fact that the tree was rotten, and you went to them and said, look, this tree's gonna fall sometime, and if they didn't do anything about it, then if it did fall, then you could go back on them and say, look, I told you there's gonna, but this tree broke off about, 5-6 feet off the bottom?
Yeah.
Just snapped right off. I had no way of telling if it was rotten or not.
Yeah.
But they're just giant trees. I mean, there's 3 or 4 of them up in there.
No, I think good thing to go over and take a look and see where you're talking. I think I know where, but I'd rather you
Yeah,
show us.
that's fine. Give me a
That
call.
way we're
Yeah,
not whistling
I'll
in
be
the
home
dark.
this week.
Okay. Okay, any
Well,
others?
On that same topic, that did happen to me several years ago when Wansley still owns the property. Bruce Wansley still had it. And I approached him about a tree, and he said, okay, well, the tree did fall, and it fell in my yard, and I then called him, and he said, well, it's an act of God. I said, no, it's not an act of God, it was a dead tree. It's what we discussed. He said, sue me.
Well,
I could have sued him, and I could have won if I wanted to spend $2,500, $3,000 to do it. I spent $35 to have somebody cut it up and haul it away. I'm not so proud that I'm gonna sue someone just for the sake of suing them.
I think
However,
the trick is, I don't believe that we have any legal authority to make somebody cut down a tree in the woods. If it was leaning over your house, we might be able to, but if it's just, I'm not sure that the village has a legal authority to
you don't, I don't think, but I think his responsibility is, if a tree is dead, if it's a live tree, it is an act of God, if something happens. If it's a dead tree, it should be removed, really, which is what I had discussed. It was one that was right on my property line, and I said, it was a big old tree, and I said, if it falls, it's gonna call. In fact, it just barely missed the power line. Fortunately, it did, but it still ended up in my yard, all the way down 5 feet from my backyard, so I just ended up having it. But I think it's his responsibility.
I agree, I think so.
I would contact your insurance company, start there, see what they tell you.
That's what they told me.
Your insurance company told you that? All right.
They
Tom,
said
you have
it's not-
anything to say?
It's not something, that's a dead tree, so it's something that, it's his responsibility, so you can go back on him and he can be sued, but I wasn't gonna sue him.
Sure.
I mean, I would love to sue him, but
Not worth it, right?
you understand what I'm saying, it's not worth the cost.
yeah, well, we're gonna have to find out, like who owns the property and responsibilities. You can't keep going through that.
I don't know who bought, the one that has the 3 houses built up there now, whoever owns that property, they have a real realtor handling it, but I don't know the owner of the property.
Yeah, well, there's the property on the other side of that, that's still owned by someone else too. In fact, there's the same situation down there, I forget the people's house, but there was a couple of trees that came down and took out electric pole, and there was damage done and everything. In fact, what's happened is the trees are cut up and just left there, and they're very unsightly. So if I gotta get a hold of that guy too, so. But anyway, we'll be over to see you and Sam, so see what's going on over there. The concerns from the audience, so if that be the case, I want to, at this time, I'd like to request that council move into executive session based on the provisions of the West Virginia Open Governmental Procedures Act of the State of West Virginia Code, Chapter 6, Article 9A, Section 4, in order to consider matters involving attorney-client privilege matters.